Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're coming off a great weekend in New York. The marathon is always one of the best days of the year in New York City, when we get to show off all 5 boroughs and all the neighborhoods to runners and visitors from around the world, not to mention a huge TV audience. It was also an amazing day for the MTA transit system. We smashed subway records on both days. Saturday saw 2.45 million riders use the system, while Sunday's total skyrocketed to 2.1 million riders, a dramatic increase over last year's marathon day ridership, and nearly 85% of the comparable pre-COVID day in 2020. Not to mention the fact that, as I said, both days were post-COVID ridership records for the weekend. Incredible. I also need to point out that nearly half, 48% of all riders used Omni to pay for their rides with phones and other tap-and-go devices. It makes sense that visitors from abroad would gravitate towards these new technologies. It's the easiest way to get on the subway and get on your way. Also, for the first time since COVID, in March of 2020, we had one of the MTA services actually hit 100%. That was our paratransit Access-a-Ride service, so 100% of pre-COVID ridership on paratransit, another major milestone. The city and the region are built on the success of mass transit. You always hear me say that for New York, mass transit is like air and water. We need it to survive. Can you imagine this weekend being possible without people being able to jet around on the subway? Not possible. A 5-borough marathon with 50,000 runners and 3 million tourists, or 3 million spectators, in the most densely populated city in the country just doesn't work without great mass transit. I want to thank our workforce, our New York City transit workforce, for their hard work throughout the weekend and always. They've been delivering for us right from the beginning of COVID. They powered us through the dark days of the pandemic, and they keep on going and delivering. Transit management, behind me, we're out in full force all weekend. Rich Davey included, and I especially want to give a shout out to Jose LaSalle, who is in charge of weekend service at the MTA, a recently appointed role. And he's been preparing for this day for weeks, and it really paid off. He deserves to take a victory lap, pun intended. I never doubted that the transit team would get it done. Big weekends like this one are what the city is all about. The city's comeback is alive and well. Anyone who was out on the street or in the mass transit system definitely felt it this weekend. We're thrilled that the MTA is playing such a vital role in our city's revival, but especially in this last great weekend. As a co-sponsor of the event, we also operate the Verrazano Bridge, where the race starts, and also being, as I say, the circulatory system that allows people to get around, crisscrossing the city, and to take in all the action. So we're very proud of that, and I'm also proud to introduce the guy who runs the subway system on a day-to-day basis, New York City Transit President Rich Davey. Rich?
Thanks, Jano. Just want to reiterate a couple things. First, a shout out again to the 47,000 men and women that run New York City Transit. I'm seeing buses loop around here at Columbus Circle. They get the job done every day, as Jano said, day in and day out, and they did again this weekend. A couple of notes. As Jano mentioned, Jose, who's been our weekend czar now for about 2 months, has already made great impacts and improvements we've seen in the system. Of course, this weekend was no exception with getting record ridership in place. But I want to thank the teams with both at C&D and at Transit who reduced the work that we usually do on weekends down to the bare minimum, emergency and critical work only. As mentioned, we had hands-on management throughout the system, which we think certainly paid dividends, and we continue to do. We had additional employees, customer service agents and others at some of the key stations here where the finish line is in particular. And lastly, this doesn't just happen. We've been doggedly looking to continue to hire employees, both bus operators, subway, operators and conductors, and as a result, we're able to continue to fill jobs on the weekends to put out the service we did this past weekend. So it takes 47,000 plus men and women, 1,000 to do the job at transit. I couldn't be more proud to represent them here today. Jenna?
CBS 880 radio right there.
Just a quick clarity question. The 85%, that was for another marathon day in a previous year?
Honestly, it was the comparable day as Marathon Day? 2019 Marathon, I'm sorry.
And I know I spoke with Rich about this, but how do you see weekend service changing in the future, given that it is recovering faster than weekday service, given that it's serving a different audience than weekday service in particular?
The first step is to get service, to make sure service is being delivered at a much higher level, so much more predictability, much more reliability. That's why we got Jose LaSalle in this new weekend service czar job, because making sure that although we have to get work done, that we're not impacting on service has been job one. We're also looking at opportunities to increase service on the weekends, understanding that we have to reconcile it with the need to improve and invest in the system. So we are looking at that. That unfolds somewhat in relationship to the pick for jobs, and we are actually pursuing some of those opportunities, but it's too early to announce them because we have to go through the pick process.
Matt Brockfeld over there, AM New York.
Hey, Jano. So I wanted to ask about the election tomorrow. You know, obviously that's on everyone's mind. You know, Lee Zeldin has said he hasn't had much of a transit plan, but among the things he has said is he wants to get rid of congestion pricing. If he gets elected tomorrow and he wants to gut congestion pricing, you know, do you have any comment on that? And would you want to stay on as chair of the MTA in that case?
A lot to unpack in that, but I'm not going to open that suitcase. The marathon is a non-political event. New Yorkers, whatever their political views, love the marathon. And the fact that we had such a great day with 50,000 runners, we're back to normal. The mass transit system excelled. That's what we're here to celebrate. Elections are obviously going to take their course, and we'll deal with that in time. But today is a day to celebrate New York and the marathon and the indications that the city's getting back to normal, as we saw yesterday, as we're sealing from the growth in the mass transit system.
So I just wanted to clarify, the 85 is compared to another marathon, no?
It's the comparable day in November of 2019. It's not the marathon.
It's a
Got it.
comparable day in November 2019, using that exact day, that exact position on the calendar, a Sunday rather.
Okay, got it. And I just wanted to follow up. So with the weekend, kind of what you're saying, as weekend service is bouncing back faster,
Yeah.
how are you going to prioritize the weekday when you need that to balance the budget with the deficit?
Well, I've been really clear that it's New York, as we say, mass transit is for New York like air and water. We have to have great mass transit service, and it also needs to be safe and reliable. So there's no choice but to invest in this. Our economy depends on it. Fairness to all the people who have been riding mass transit right through COVID and who still depend on it. Remember, New Yorkers don't all own cars. They can't spend, most New Yorkers can't afford a $50 Uber. So we have to make the investments that allow us to maintain the full mass transit service that we have now, and maybe even more in the future.
John Paul from New York One. You see us right here.
José, por favor, si es que nos puede decir en español que está la ciudad regresando a la normalidad ya para los fines de semana en cuanto al tránsito.
Sí, estamos trabajando, planeando muchas semanas, meses adelante para resolver los problemas que tenemos en el tránsito y para echarla para adelante como Nueva York.
Este fin de semana se dio justamente ese regreso de la ciudad con lo de la carrera. Si nos puede explicar un poquito de eso, lo que habló el presidente, por favor,
sí,
en español.
Este fin de semana todo fue, después de planeando y teniendo la gente, los supervisores, los managers en sus lugares, todo fue perfectamente bien. Muchas gentes tomando los trenes, los corredores, sus familias, sus amigos, usando el tránsito. Me dio un gusto muy poderoso, sentir muy bien que estamos cogiendo en la dirección que se tiene que coger. Okay.
Thank you.
Que bien, Jose.
Where are you getting lunch, you know?
On the public safety aspect, and I have heard the new announcements about the NYPD being on the platform if you need assistance, but that is also increasing dwell times a bit. How concerned are you about service deteriorating in service of this appearance of public safety?
First, number one, there's no indication that service has deteriorated so far. Number two, Rich Davies in charge of the New York City subway system, so I'm confident service is going to be great. Number three, what we're hearing from our customers is they love knowing that there are cops on the platform, both to reassure them that there's a police presence, but also in some cases so they know where to turn if something that concerns them is going on. So I think those announcements have been a great success, and we're going to keep doing them.
All right, thanks,
All right,
everybody.
thank you.
Thank you